multiple containers. Like we tried what do you say, Alpine container, BusyBox, Ubuntu. So few Linux container we ran, and we understood the advantage of container. What are the advantages? They are extremely fast. They are very less in size, right? Just a moment. I'm getting call. All right. Meanwhile, so anybody have an AWS free tier account? Anybody from JSON technology or someone, they can give me credentials so that I can create an EC2 machine and Docker containers, right? So you can share details on one-to-one chat. All right. So after the containers, we try to spin up few containers, and we saw that container is spinning is very fast. It takes few seconds only, and it is very portable, right? So till here, does anybody has any doubt in installing the Docker, creating the container, Docker run hyphen IT commands, Docker hyphen D, Docker hyphen P commands? Any doubt in those commands? Anyone? So we install the Docker. Yeah. Okay. So, and we already discussed lot of these commands: Docker run, Docker ps minus a, Docker stop, Docker logs, Docker ps minus a just to see Docker images. And obviously, as everyone knows, RM means remove. So if you want to remove a container, you will use Docker RM container ID. But you need to make sure you cannot remove a container which is running. So before removing the container should be in stopped status. So if container is running, this command will not run. It will give you an error, right? And Docker pull, Docker run, these all commands we have seen. Docker exec we'll see. So exec is nothing like, so in some container images, the default command is bin bash. That means when you run the container, the default command will be bin bash. So you don't need to use exec command to get inside the container. So what we were doing yesterday, we did on the Ubuntu container docker run hyphen it and Ubuntu, right? That's what we did. We did not use the exact argument, but still we were able to connect to container, because in the Ubuntu container, the default command was bin bash. That is why. But some other containers, let's say any database container or any application Python container, if you want to get into the container and their default command is not bin bash or shell, and if you want to get inside the container, in that case, we will use the command docker exec hyphen it and container ID, and then we'll give the command bin bash. So what it will do, then docker exec means it will execute interactively, hyphen I interactively, T means TTY terminal, right? T means TTY terminal, and then container ID on that container, and then we run the command slash bin bash. So what it will do is it will run the bin slash bin bash command into the container, similar to something like this is actually Mac, so not exactly same, but you can see something like, let's say if you want to run a bash, so I just type the bash and I will get the bash terminal. You see, so bash terminal is there. So now I can run any command which I want to run in terminal, right? ls-l, anything. So exactly similar way that bin bash will do the task inside the container. So you will connect to container like this, and then you will run bash or bin bash. Enter, you will get the bash prompt. So because without getting the prompt, you cannot run any command on the container. So that is why slash bin bash is given. In some containers, it is only sh. How do I get it? What in which container it will be bin bash? in which container it will be shell. Once you get into the container, all the details are provided. Either you are developing the container, you already know. If somebody has developed the container like Docker Hub or any registry, you can see that. Okay. I think this command is clear. We will be practicing this command also. So unfortunately, today we don't have an AWS account, so we cannot practice anything because the account which provided to me was suspended. So tomorrow onwards we will practice. Today we will cover some theory. Okay. Okay. Docker run HTTPD. It will run the container HTTPD. Docker run -d HTTPD. It will run the container in the background. -d is a detached mode. If I run this command docker run HTTPD, it will run the container. It will run the default command provided in HTTPD container. So let's see what is the default command. Let's type docker hub. Get into it. And let's look for HTTPD. Enter. This is the official image. Click on it. And we just want to know. So every detail will be there. What it will do, how will you run, all sort of detail will be provided to you. But you want to know that which command it will run once I run this container. So you click on any of the tags. So this is a Docker file. Maybe Friday we will be creating one Docker file. So Friday we will create a Docker file, a small Docker file, so that you can understand. Okay. So which command it will run? So basically, if I run the container HTTPD and if I don't pass any command argument, so by default, when you run the container, the command will run basically CMD. So whatever you mention under the CMD command while creating the Docker container, that command will be executed once the container is running or you start the container. So if I start this HTTPD container, and I don't give any command, I just run it. Which command it will run? It will run HTTPD-foreground. That means it will run the Apache web server in the front. It will not run in the background. It will run on the foreground. So that means if I run this command HTTPD, docker run HTTPD, it will start the HTTPD container and it will run on the terminal. Correct? So that means we will not be able to type any command because terminal will be taken by this container. Why? Because it will run HTTPD server in the foreground. How do I know? Because it is mentioned in Apache's container image. You don't need to remember anything. You just need to know where to look, what to look. Okay. Any doubt? Anyone here? What is this CMD is doing? Anyone? Okay. In that case, now, but that will not be the case all the time. Sometimes you want to run the container and obviously you want to execute another command. You don't want to create multiple windows of the terminal. So you want to run the container, but at the same time, you want to check the logs, you want to run another container, you want to do other tasks also. So that means you want to run this container, but not on the foreground. You want to run this container at the same time, you want to get the terminal back. That is why you will use the -d detached mode so that you will run the container and you will get the prompt back because now the container is running, but you got the terminal back. That is what the -d option is. And one more very important command we discussed was inspect. If you want to inspect any container, any volume, any network in Docker, the command will be docker inspect, or in the new terminology, docker container inspect container ID or container name. Both you can use. Okay, very important command, these three. Everyone understood? All right,
Yes,
let's
sir.
move further. Cool, cool. Is done. All right, so this is something interesting. Let us see. Little increment. Perfect. So yesterday we see the port mapping. So while we ran the nginx command, we run the command. Which command we ran? Let me open up a notepad actually. What command we ran? While running the container, we ran the command docker run, okay, hyphen it, or maybe I can be hyphen d -p, and we give the port this, colon this, and then we give -name, it's any name, web server, and then engine. This is the command we ran, right? Now we understood this command, but again, let's understand because port mapping is very important. Remember, while defining the port, we use the -p. -p is not port, -p means publish. So we are publishing the port, that is why it is called -p. Now, first port will be, just remember the sequence. First will be host, where your Docker is running. Second will be inside the container. So while running the Nginx container, I am telling Docker, use port 8080 from the host where I have installed Docker and map it to port 80 inside the container, because I know that inside the container only port 80 is working. Only port 80 is open. How do I know? Because I went to Docker Hub. And I looked for Nginx. When I clicked on this Nginx image, I went to any of the tag, latest tag, and I wanted to know which port it is open. It is open port 80. So if I'm running this web server, unless I change it, I can change it. Definitely I can change it. But if I'm not changing that image, I have to make sure port 80 is communicating with my host. How it is communicating? Using this port mapping. So in my host, port 8080 is going to connect to port 80 and Nginx will be running. So while running the web server, I will not use port 80 because I have mapped the containers port 80 to my servers 8080. So while running the website, I will type HTTP, whatever my web, localhost or IP, localhost, colon, I have mapped my host 8080. So inside port 80 is open, but port 80 I have mapped to my 8080. It could be anything. I can map to 8082, 8380, whatever I can do. It's my choice. Everybody understood the port mapping concept? Any doubt?
No,
Now
sir.
let's now let's understand with the difference with the diagram. So this is the Docker host where I'm running the Docker, where I have installed the Docker. Inside it, you see this block, first block. This is one of the web container. The IP is 172.17.02. This is one container which is running. Now within the container, there are certain ports like 5000 or this they all are attached 5000 to the port. They are all attached 5000 to the port, and the port inside it defined as port 80. So 5000 port is defined here in place of 80. So in place of 80, now let's say this has saying 5000. So how will it work? So let's say this container uses port 5000. So what will be my command now? That means 5000 is mentioned here, export 5000. Now I want to run this container. So can you tell me what will be my command now? Let's say it is the same engine experiment. So I will run docker run -d -p. Now give me, what should I type? The container
Uh,
port is 5000. So
so,
here will be 5000, right?
yeah,
Here I can put anything, right? So
whatever
I
you
can
want
put
to.
8000. Exactly. So just remember this mapping. Container port 5000, host port 80. Similar thing here. Port 5000. I can map it to port 80. I can map it to port 8000. Okay. Similarly, and then if I map it to port 80, what will be my IP? 192.168.1.5.80. What is this 192 IP? This is the host IP. So similarly, let's make it to 80 as per this example. It is mapped, 5000 is mapped to port 80. So, and then same thing, name XYZ Nginx image. So if I want to access this Nginx, I will type HTTP colon uh, server IP, okay, host IP, where this is installed, host IP colon port 80. But HTTP default works on port 80, so you don't need to mention 80, right? But internally, if you can 80, it works fine. So that is how the port mapping works inside. Whatever is there, container, that means it is exposing this port. This port you can map it to your choice. Now this is this web app container. Second container 172.17.0.c. It also exposes port 5000. But what we can do, we can map, and we have to map, because once port 80 is mapped to 5000, we cannot use for other container because now it is already mapped. So this time this 5000 I can map to inside 8000. I mean host 8000. This container 5000 I can map to 8001. So what will be the command? Similar. First will be -p port 80 in the host 5000 of container. Port 80 8000 in the host 5000 container. Similarly, all these things will be running. Anybody has any doubt? Port mapping is very important because a lot of the time people will type wrong port. Let's say this port is used by somebody else, and while running the container they use port 80. Now they will say, well, application is not coming up, it's not working, because this port is already used. And how to check it? Actually this is I am Mac, but let's say netstat. Yeah, so netstat is a command that you can use to check which ports are open. Netstat -tulnp, right? This is the command, and then you can pipe grep and -i again and listen. Let's see which ports it is listening to. Not listening. Netstat -l and tup. Netstat -e. Just type grep max, so some maybe it's little different is there. Okay, so now I can see that in my container, sorry, in my Mac machine, there are some ports it is listening. I think it's a little different. In Linux, it's a different, but yeah, maybe it's not coming in the Mac. Netstat, only netstat. Let's see what it says. So let's check the output. Even I don't, I mean, not many server are Mac here. Let's see. Oh yeah. So UDP is there. You see? So netstat says this is the local IP address, this is the foreign address, and whether the connection is established or not. So if it is established, that means that particular port is connected, like this port. This is connected. This port is connected. This port is connected. So this port is already used. You see, 49 localhost, this port is used. This port is used. So these ports are already used. If I try to again use this port, it will not work. Okay. So I think most of you already know what is netstat, right? I don't need to tell you. Is there anyone who don't know what is this? So basically, netstat will tell you the network statistics, which protocol, which server, which address connection is established. So that is the output, correct? So let's check any port, maybe this port. So let's say you know this port you are trying to connect, and now you want to see what is the status. So you can type netstat and just grep for this port. Let's see what happens. Why grep is not working here? Netstat -t. Anyway, once I connect to Linux machine, I will show you. In Mac, it's a little different actually. I mean, grep will work eventually if I type, I think, everything. So let's type this thing. Just see whether grep is working or not, right? Yeah, so grep is working, but maybe it's not able to find. So you understood, right? What I did? So I just try to grep com.apple.com from the netstat output. Now I can see all the ports and everything from com.apple.com. I wanted to copy actually the particular port 65476, but it's not able to find it. Anyways, but you get the idea. So basically, what I want to tell you is, if you map any port on the host, you need to make sure that port is open. How do you check that port is open? Using the netstat. How to use netstat, you can check also. Or if you don't know, maybe we can discuss later. That is not the part of Docker. But yes, how to check, someone asks you how to check whether that particular port is open or not. There are few commands. Netstat is one, and cat is there, ss is there. There are many Linux utility you can use. Netstat is one of the most common, I guess. And it is available on most of the Linux distributions also. All right. So
Because sir, is there any range between the port digit value is the hello?
yes, yes, I can hear you.
Here port digit value is four, right, sir? Four numbers is right there, eight six five
No,
three something.
yeah, it could be anything between around 65536. That is the standard range, but you can get anything, typically any port. But ideally,
Okay,
range is like 65536. That is the range.
65536. Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
that is the port range. 65536, right? 65,536. So it's something like zero to this, but this is the complete port range. But I think 0 to 100 are already fixed, like port 80, port 22. You know these things, right? Port 22 is SSH, port 25 is SMTP, port 80 is HTTP. And that is why port 0 to 100 is not used. In fact, 0 to 500 you can leave. They are already used. If you use port 20 mapping, it will never work because 20 is by default fixed for SSH, correct? 25 is SMTP, port 80 is HTTP, 443 is HTTPS. So a lot of ports are already fixed. So anything you can take in terms of like more than 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, that is like the default one. Because you don't want to mix with these standard ports, right? So typically anything people, you can use anything greater than 5,000, right? Greater than 5,000, you should be safe. There are no standard ports,
Okay.
right? So usually once you design, you can set a port, but people will say, I will use 6,000 to maybe 8,000. 2,000 ports are enough, right? 6,000 to 8,000. So yeah, similarly, that mapping you can do. And inside the container, while developing, we can define, right? So any higher ports are fine. Don't use lower ports, less than 100, less than 500. Don't use it because they are already fixed. In fact, if you want to see, you can say list of ports, 0 to 100. So as you can see, everything is already assigned. 11 is assigned for active users, and port 22 is assigned for SSH. 23 is for Telnet. 25 for SMTP. 27 is 28 is unofficial. Palo Alto network. Don't use it. So that is why you see till 100. I think everything is already assigned. So that is why if you use anything port 80 hypertext HTTP. So till 100 it is already assigned. In fact, 100 500 also it is assigned. Some port 540 533. Yeah. So that is why it is best to use greater than 5,000. This is not official. You can use anything. It is there, but it is unofficial. You can use it in your environment, right? But whatever is on the top, lower environment, that you should not use. That you should not use. Okay. So yeah, that is how. So port mapping is done. So now you know how to map the port from the container to outside the container using -p. That is also sometimes it get messed up, troubleshoot you need to do. Similar way, whatever I discuss is here. Container, you can use the same port also. You can use the same port also. So let's remove it. What is this? Yeah. What you can do is Docker run -d -p. Let's say inside container is 5,000. So outside also I can use 5,000. I can use this also, right? Name XYZ engineer. This is also fine. It is not necessarily that you need to change the host port. It is also fine. Similarly, if you are running the Nginx and it says inside port 80, what I can do is, if you see, what is the Nginx port? It says inside expose port 80. So that means inside the container port 80 is open. I can do the same thing. I said, okay, let's make it 8080. So I can use this also. So now I will just type HTTP on the browser. my IP or local host, whatever, colon 80, it works. This is also fine. Whatever port inside container is there, you can use that port also. But most of the times in production, that port will be used already. So that is why this utility is provided to you can map the port. Because once you download the Nginx container, you're not going to change the container, because that is why we are using the container to just immediately use it. So better, if the port is already used, I will map it. So let's say port 80 is there. Oh, my port 80 is busy. What I can do? Okay, let's make it 800. Let's make it 8000. Something like this you will do. So that means within container, you don't need to change anything. Anywhere on the host, you are mapping 8000 to port 80. That is what you will do. You can do the same port also, and you can change the port also. Cool. It is not necessary.
So suppose this port 80 is there in another server, then we can use, or we can use only once only, sir.
Yes, if on the same host it is already there. So that is why it says conflict when same port on host machine. If 5000 is in container and 5000 is already not available on the host, it is already used. So then you cannot map it. If it is
Okay.
free on the host, then you can map it,
Okay.
right? It should be
Suppose
available. Let's say
suppose
I
if
am
that
already
port number
connecting.
is okay. Okay.
Yeah. So if port, let's say 5000 port on this machine, I'm already using it. 5000 on this machine, I'm already using it. And inside the container, it is a 5000. So I cannot map it to my 5000. What I can do, 5000, I can map to 5001,
Yes.
5002, something like this.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, next concept is Docker volume, which we will do practice tomorrow, because today we don't have an AWS session. I have one account, but my data is in different laptop. So yeah, tomorrow I will have my personal AWS option also available if it is not there, because my account is also expired. So I will see. Now, what is volume? So let's see this option. So when we ran this container, we could see the web page, right? Welcome to engineer. We saw that, right? Remember, we saw this page.
Yes.
Yes.
But in real world, we don't want welcome to engineer. We want our web page, right?
Okay.
In the real world, we want our web page to be hosted in Nginx proxy. So on the Nginx web server, we will be pushing our own images. So that is what our requirement is. So let's understand the current situation. When we run this Nginx container, whatever is the file system and data inside the Nginx container, it will be available till the container is running. As soon as the container is stopped, that Docker container is gone. It is deleted. You got it? Once you exit the process, the container will be gone. Even if you stop it, it will be in stopped status. So nobody can access it. But let's say there are no process running inside the container, it will exit. So whatever data is inside the container, it will be gone. But we don't want that in the real world. So there has to be a way so that I can get a persistent data within the container. So even if the container is deleted, my data should be here. So let's say I created a website. Welcome to JSON technology. That is the website I created, right? Welcome to JSON technology. This is the website I created. Right? Now this website I need to host on Nginx. So I can make changes inside the container also. But the problem will be if I put this web page inside the container, let's say this container is deleted somehow or something happened, this container is gone. So my website will be gone. I need to again create this web page. So what I will do, I will create the web page, some HTML file. I will create this web page and I will mount that particular volume from my host to the container so that even if the container is deleted, my data and my volume will be persistent and safe. Okay, this is just an idea. Let's see how it works. So this is a Docker. What is Docker volume? This is a host. our server where I have installed the Docker on the server where I am running Docker pull, Docker run. Once I run Docker run Nginx, I can see this container is running, right? So this container is running inside the host, and inside the container there will be a file system var lib mysql data, var lib data, any file system is there. So this directory is available only till the time container is running. As soon as the container is deleted, this file system will be gone. Everything will be gone. All right. Now what I can do is I can mount a volume from the host. From the host, I can mount a volume, any drive, slash home mount data, slash home mount data, slash root, any drive. I can mount this drive to any path inside the container. So what is the advantage? So whatever data is here on the host in this directory, I will mount it inside the container. So that means if I change data here, data inside it will be changing. If I get remove data from here, data here will be removing. So when my web server is running, when my web server is running, and I can somehow mount this page to this directory. So on my web page, if I run localhost 80, I can see this page. Container is running. And if I change, welcome to new JSON. As soon as I change, it should be changed inside the container also, right? How? Because my host volume I have mapped to the container volume. Any doubt? Right. And how do we do it? Using -v option that is used for volume. So that will be the command. We will practice this command tomorrow, but just to show you how you can do it. So what you can do is, so there are three types of actually volumes. Anonymous volume, you don't need to mention anything, just mention the volume. Most used is the named volume. So this is the one which we'll be using, and in production environment, that is the one we will be using. So how we use it? Today I can show you the command. So the command will be occur, okay, run -d detach mode -p for publishing the port 8080 inside the nginx. It will mention port 80, and then I have a custom web page in my local host. So I will say -v. -v is volume, and wherever directory. Let's say it is under maybe any directory, user web data. Okay, under this directory I have data, every data, and then colon. So this is the host directory, and then this particular volume or drive I will map inside the container. So inside the container where I want to map. So in the nginx we can map, or we need to map under user share nginx html. This, how did I know that I need to map it here? If you go to the container, nginx container, it will tell you. It will tell you where are the files, user share html nginx. Got it? That is how you can do the mapping. So everything is there in the document. You don't need to remember anything. HTML, and then sorry, and then you can give it a name, my web server, and then which image, nginx. So what it will do? Till here everybody is clear. Till here everybody is clear. The only thing which we need to discuss is this part. So what is this part? -v is volume mapping. Now first, before the colon is the host part. Before the colon is the host part. So this part is host part. After the colon, remember, after the colon, it is container. Just remember this thing. It is the same for port mapping. It is the same for volume mapping. So -v volume mapping, the before the colon host part. So before the colon, I am using a directory, any directory you can use, /user /web data, anything. So let's say, for example, here I can use like df, right? Df -p, let's say this. Yeah. So this is all my data directory, right? /dev /system, anything I can use, or I can use pwd /user vikas.sync. So let's say I have a directory called mkdir nginx. Sorry, nginx. I'm doing nginx, right? I go to nginx. What is my current directory? User vikas.sync nginx. I'll copy it. And in this directory, I will create a file index.html. I'll create a website. So my website will be created here. So anyway, just tomorrow we will have a web page, sample web page, but this is my website, right? So this is my website. My web page is there. So my developers are creating all the JavaScript files, all the HTML, CSS. My developers are working on the web page. They have created a very good website, and because they cannot work inside the container. So all the data they will put inside this container. It could be AWS S3 bucket anywhere. So this is the place where I have all the my required code. Now I need to, because I am running the Nginx container, I don't need to install, I don't want to install any dependencies, anything. I have my website, my developers have created. Now I need to put this file index.html, and there are other files also. So let's say not only index.html, let's create one more file, anything. Touch. Yeah, let's say file one, anything. So now there are two files. So while for running my website in Nginx server, I need these two files inside the container. Okay. So now this is the place where I have all my data. In my local machine where I have installed the Docker, I can copy this and I will put it here, -v put. So whatever files I have here, it is going to be inside the container, this part, user share nginx HTML. And now if I run the command localhost 80 or run the website, I will see what I will see, whatever I have in my index.html. Welcome to JSON technology. The advantage of this thing is, if I need to change the website content or anything, I don't need to touch container. I will simply come here, or I can just see code dot install the VS Studio code. I will come here. I will start writing new code. I will start writing new code, changing it, everything, whatever I do, save it, run it, container, refresh the container web page, and it will have a new website. Got it? That is the advantage of. It needs to be closed actually. So that is the advantage of volume mapping. Got it? Anybody have any doubt on volume mapping? Anyone? Now you understood the volume mapping? Tomorrow we will be practicing and discussing what are the different types of volumes available, how we can map the volume, how we can delete the data, and how we can persistently store the data irrespective of the container lifecycle. That means even if the container is available or is stopped or deleted, my data will be saved. Why? Because all my data is in my host machine, and I am just mapping it to the container. So I know when the container is not being used, it will be deleted. And that is the advantage of container. I don't want to waste my resources. But as soon as the container is running, all the data it will get from this drive. How? Because I already did the mapping. Okay, anybody? Any doubt? No doubt? Everybody is clear with the volumes?
Yes, sir.
Cool, cool, cool. So yeah, so once you know the volume mapping, then we can go. We'll discuss little bit about networking also. It's a little advanced in the Docker, but we will discuss. So we'll practice tomorrow the network Docker volumes. We'll understand the Docker networking, and after that on Friday we will create a Docker file, and by maybe next week Monday Tuesday we will complete the Docker and we will start basics of Kubernetes, because Kubernetes will take 2 weeks, complete 2 weeks to understand the basics. In order to understand everything Kubernetes or very in depth, it will take 2 to 3 months. It's a long time because it's a huge thing. Even within Docker, it takes a lot of time. But at least you should understand the fundamentals, most of the concept. You should be able to explore and work in a production environment. That much knowledge we should have. Okay, so yep, I think that should be it. We don't have an account ready yet today. Otherwise, we would have done the practice for Docker volume. So tomorrow, what we'll do, we will create a very simple Python application. Let's see. Yeah, how many of you know Python? Do anyone know little bit Python? Not much. Very little Python is okay.
No ideas.
Yeah. Okay. So let me show you one simple Python application. Very simple. You don't need to know Python. If you know little bit Linux, you will understand this Python code. So let's create an application, and tomorrow we will deploy it in the container. Let's say I want to create a calendar application, right? Let's create a calendar application. So not this one. Let's go back. Okay. Let's delete it. There are too many folders. Okay. So let's see. I have Python 3 -" version. Perfect. Python 3 is there. So cd scripts. Okay. Here I open a VS Code. Okay. So let's create a Python application. Currently, let's assume I'm a developer. You don't need to know Python. Okay. Understand. This has nothing to do with the Python. Let's say you are a developer or somebody is a developer who's writing an application, very small application just for testing. So just a calendar application. Just recently I was doing some demo. So there is a Python module available called calendar. So just import the calendar. Okay. And then print. Very simple application. You will understand very easily. Just print. Welcome to the calendar application. So, but if I'm writing this code, what is the minimum requirement I have in order to run this program? Can anyone tell me? If I write this code, what is the minimum thing I should have in the machine to run this code? Can anyone tell me? At least I should have Python installed, right? Getting my point, right? If I write this code and Python is not installed on my machine, can I run this code?
No.
Can't.
Exactly. So that is the one thing. So maybe developer machine has Python. Maybe your machine does not have. Maybe where he is deploying it doesn't have a Python. So we will write the Python code and we will deploy it inside the container. That we can do tomorrow. So today I'm just showing you the code. It's a very simple code. You don't need to know Python at all. So it's just a print statement. I'm importing the calendar module and it is just a printing. It will just print this line. That's it. It won't do anything. It is just a print statement. Now just create a variable year. What is the year? So year is int. So it's we are converting int. And in Python, if you want to get input from the user, you use the input command, and then you type please enter the. So what I am doing is user will put the year and the month. So depending upon the year and month, I will display the calendar. That is the application I'm creating. Enter the year or any year. Enter. Very simple application. Any year. Nothing is happening here. Everybody understand here? Enter year here. So far, nothing. All good, right? That's it. And then month also. I need to get the month from the user also. This and copy the same line. Copy the same line. Just change month, year to month. That's it. Correct? Enter any month, enter any year. So user will enter these things, and then I will use the print to. Then that is why Python is very easy. Within the calendar module, everything is there. How do I know? I Google it. So inside the calendar module, if I type calendar dot, you will see this is available. All the methods is available. I can get the month, I can get the format, everything I can get. So calendar dot month. I don't need to type any code. I will type calendar dot because this is a method it is defined under inside the function. And I know it takes 2 arguments. Under the month, I will type year and that's it. It will print the calendar. And after that, I can say print. Have a good day. Something, any message. Just making an app working. Have a good day. That's it. Right? So this is a simple application. Just 4 lines of code, nothing. It's just a print statement. Nothing else is there. Currently, only 1 line of code is there. Print calendar dot month. Year is the argument. Month is the argument. Where it is getting? It is getting from the user input function. That's it. Very simple. You don't need to worry about it. Let's test and run it. Let's run this Python file. What it is asking? It is asking press enter any year. Let's say 2022, current year. And any month. Let's say months are 1 to 12. Let's say 2, enter. Okay, so this is the February 22 calendar. This is the application you have developed, right? It's a very simple application. Everybody understood, right? But I don't want to teach you this code. I want to teach you the importance of Docker now. Now see, I can run this code because Python 3 is here. Python 3 is in my machine. If Python 3 is not here, I will not be able to run this code, correct?
Yeah.
So yes, so now using this code, what I can do is I can get a Python container. Okay, that can be done. So let's go to Google. Let's go to Docker Hub and just search for Python. So maybe some machines, they don't have Python. They cannot install Python. And you see this Python, it is 1 billion plus downloads, official image. Click on it. Okay, very simple. Docker pull Python. So tomorrow, we have our calendar app. We will do Docker pull Python. So we will pull the Python image. What it has? It has all the Python latest version, 3.1, 3.2, all the version. So depending upon the required version, we will get the Docker Python version and we can see what is the basic command. It will run Python 3. This is the basic command. That's good. And then app. So what we do, so normally, if you see this guy, you can run the file like this also. Python 3 and the file name. What is the file name? Test.py. So because I'm using Visual Studio Code, so I can click here, run code. But in real world, that is how you will run the Python in command line. Python 3 and the file name. 2030 January. So this is the calendar of January 2030. So how do I run the Python application? Python 3 and then the application name. Okay, so Python 3, perfect. And if I use the Python calendar, what is the default command it will run? Can anyone tell me what is the default command it will run? Python 3, right? This is the command it will run, Python 3. So that means this part will be done. The only thing I need to pass is my application file name. That is what I need to do. So if I use this container, so how can I run? I will say Docker run, right? -it, maybe interactively or anything. -v, I can map a volume or not, we'll see. Maybe I can map a volume. I will say anything, right? My directory. My directory. I will create a directory. I will map it to the any application folder that we will see. And then I will run Python container. Python container. What is the image name? Python image name. I'm running this Python image name. And I can run Python. Python 3 will be by default again. I can add an argument Python 3 app.py. If I run this tomorrow, we'll see. If I run this, so even if somebody who has not installed any Python, who don't want to install Python, with the help of Python container, he can run this application. So everything from the scratch we will do tomorrow. Then you will understand that why containers are really popular and how they are used. And obviously it's not an app actually, but yeah, just one line command. So that we will use tomorrow. Any doubt with anyone on this part? Anybody?
No.
No? Cool. All right. So tomorrow we will see volumes and we will try to create this small Python app or maybe any other app. We'll see. This one also is fine. And we will map it to the Python container. And then we will see that without installing the Python, with the help of Python container, we will be running all the Python application. And not only that, let's say there are some applications, they require very specific version. For example, what is my Python version? Let's say my Python, what is Python version is 3.9.6. Let's say some application require 3.7 or any other version. So that you can also check, right? Maybe you need Python 2 also. That you can also search. Python 2 will be there also somewhere. You can find. So based on the version also, you can get your containers. Okay, I think that should be enough for the day. So,
sir, in Dockerfile, you are writing in Python language or YAML language, sir?
No, in Docker, there is no language. Docker has its own syntax, right?
Okay.
So, yeah. So in Docker, there is no language. In Docker, it's very easy actually. Docker is very syntactical. Docker file. How will you write a Docker file? It's very standard syntax argument, one line by one, something like this. So this is a Docker file. Something like, yeah, this is the Docker file, like this only.
Okay.
Just simple lines. There is no commands and all. So yeah, basically this is a Docker file, but it's a very, let me check. So this is a Docker file. Let me open it. Let me paste it here. And Docker file name should be Docker file. And you see, as soon as I name the Docker file, a Docker syntax is created. Create a Docker file, close it, paste it. That is how you create a Docker file, right? So this will be, there is no syntax. You just define what is the base operating system you are going to use, what is your environment variable, what is your, this is the UTF language, and then you run the command. If you want to run a command inside the container, you use run. So these are the commands he's running. wget -o, installing the Python, gpg bash, rm -, it's removing this. So any command you want to execute, you use run. So don't worry about these things. These are just the commands you need to run. That's it. Okay. And then he's running the set exe for every source in this. That is it. Again, the environment variable. And then at the end, one CMD or entry point. That's it. So that is how we will create. We will create one Python application Docker file also.
Okay.
But there is no language like Python. You can use, but it's very simple. Docker files are just the standard commands, starting with from. The first line will always be from, because Docker file is a collection of layers. We'll discuss in next future classes.
Okay.
Yep, we will discuss in future classes all the Docker file and everything. Okay, I think that should be it today, unless anybody has any doubt. Okay then, I think so. Tomorrow we'll have the we'll have the accounts and everything ready, and tomorrow we'll start practicing volume and some portion of the application. This application we deployed using the Python container, and then we will start Docker file. Okay.
Sir, for containers, we can allocate a memory, sir.
Yes, we can allocate memory. We can define the size of the container. We can define the space of the container. So everything we can do. But that comes when we orchestrate the container. So when we run the Kubernetes, then we'll define how much memory container should have, how much maximum CPU I can give the container. You can give the same thing with Docker Swarm also. So currently we are just seeing how the container works, how the container is running. When we start managing and orchestrating the container, how much RAM I should give the container, how much CPU I should give the container, that means now I'm managing the container. In order to manage that, I need to have a tool. those tools are Docker Swarm or Kubernetes. So we will be learning Kubernetes.
Okay.
All right. Yep, that's what we'll do.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Then. Yep. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Nice.